Yields back. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Huizenga, who is the chairman of the Subcommittee on Oversight and Investigations, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and appreciate the panel. Welcome to the alternative universe. It's amazing. Yesterday, this side of the aisle was compared to Trotskyites. By the way, definition of that is socialist democracy. And by the way, Trotsky was trying to overthrow democratic capitalism, and he didn't think that the Soviet Union was going far enough. So we also had a misquoting of Milton Friedman yesterday. This month is the 50th anniversary of his seminal work. The social responsibility of business is to increase its profits. It's literally the name of his essay. But we're being told by others on the other side of the aisle that we are somehow anti-capitalist, anti-democratic. It's insanity. It's complete insanity, and just underscores how political this has become. So I'm going to get to the Index Act, Mr. Netram, first and foremost. Republicans in both the House and the Senate introduced the Index Act, which highlights the role some asset managers play in passive managed funds. You noted in your testimony that boards of directors must act in Main Street investors' long-term financial best interests, and those investors have the right to hold company leaders accountable via the proxy ballot. How important is it for these shareholders to have an active role in shareholder voting process? In other words, is it important that Congress create some guardrails on investment advisors who direct how shareholders should cast their votes?
It's critically important because these are not shares of the asset managers. These are shares held for the benefit of Main Street investors. They deserve to have a voice in that process.
Right. I want to move on to some of the other issues that we need to cover here. Proxy advisors like Glass Lewis and ISS, who is former president of one of those institutions, is here today. They affect the outcome of millions of shareholders' votes. Their influence is growing and, unfortunately, increasing focus heavily on ESG initiatives without any accountability, oversight, or competition. That is why they'll be appearing before my Oversight and Investigations Subcommittee this afternoon. Mr. Berry, your testimony pointed to overlap between the environmental and social agendas of prominent shareholder activists and proxy advisors. How do proxy advisors and shareholder activists arrive at these same priorities? Do they coordinate?
The short answer is yes. They work through organizations like Climate Action 100 that convenes asset managers, institutional investors, proxy advisors, and shareholder components.
And is it true that companies are already required by law to disclose, quote, impacts related to climate change that have a material effect on a company's business and operations?
Yes, absolutely, if material.
Materiality, materiality, materiality. All right, given that material information regarding climate change must already be disclosed, is there a good reason to deviate from that standard?
As was said previously, it's a time-tested standard, and there's no good reason as far as we can assess.
In ISS's written testimony, the firm states that ISS performs its work in a prudent, open, and honest manner. Yet in December of 2022, the head of governance solutions for ISS testified that ISS failed to consult with the Texas Employees Retirement System over new types of shareholder proposals. Mr. Berry, how does this failure like this and others affect the accuracy, reliability, and information provided to those actual shareholders?
It can have a huge effect. If there's no feedback, there's no consultation, how can you expect reliability?
Okay. Mr. Netram, you emphasized in your testimony that proxy advisors have an outsized influence on corporate governance at manufacturers of all sizes, public and private. By the way, I know many privately held companies that have sustainability officers because their customers request it or they feel internally that they need to do that. How does this influence affect the decision-making process of companies and their boards?
Well, for the manufacturing industry, proxy advisory firms operate as sort of quasi-regulators. Their influence is felt well before any vote is cast as companies try to contort themselves to match their policies with what proxy advisory firms would recommend positively.
And it's true that while those proxies or those shareholder proposals may not be legally binding, ISS and Glass Lewis will then recommend that those boards that reject them get voted out, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, maybe not by legal act, but certainly by action. Okay, real quickly, well, I guess I've got 7 seconds. I don't know that I'm going to be able to do this, but I hope that we can lend some common sense to this and that materiality is the watchword, and I yield back, Madam Chair.